So, yeah, as Shalene told you, I am the Deputy Director of 10th Amendment Center, a position I've held for 2 years now. And why are we doing this? Why are we going around the country? Why are we talking to people all over the place? Well, the reason is, as Jason was telling you, the principles that this republic was founded on have been turned upside down, have been turned on their head. The gentleman who fought and died in the revolution did not do so just to replace one dictatorship with another dictatorship. And what we find today is that we're in a position where that reality is rapidly approaching, and as many in this room probably think, is already here today. The most recent example of what I'm talking about happened in Texas last week. Has anybody been paying attention to the news in their Lone Star State? Okay, so what the Texans did, and Representative David Simpson, who's actually spoken at 2 of our events now, he put together a bill. It was, really radical bill. What it said is, we would like you to stop groping our women, children, our elderly without probable cause. Right? Anybody in this room tired of seeing these videos? That are on YouTube of people being needlessly molested just for trying to get on an airplane. So that was one bill they did, and then the other one they did, if we have any members of the health freedom community here, I'm sure you're aware of all the details of what's wrong with these backscatter X-ray machines, which is their other tactic that they have in the airports right now too. So they had 2 bills up, and the groping bill passed in the Texas House of Representatives 138 to 0. So this is progress, and this is, I feel a personal sense of responsibility in this situation, because 2 years ago, nobody was talking like this, and this is what we've been working for so hard. This is what I've dedicated my life to, is to enabling average people to fight back against a machine that is so, wicked and so uncaring of the average man. What happened was the Texas House passed a law, and then it was up to the Texas Senate. And that's when the Fed stepped in. A U.S. attorney sent a letter around to all the Texas senators basically saying that if this law were to go through, that they would have to shut down all air travel in the state of Texas, because that was the only way that they could ensure the safety of the people in Texas. And one of the tricks that they use that's up their sleeve, and I've got the letter right here actually. This is a common tactic if you look at what they do. Come on, iPhone. Is anybody here aware of something called the Supremacy Clause in the Constitution? Yes. Okay. What the Supremacy Clause says is that any conflict between a federal law and a state law goes to the feds. And they like to put this on TV a lot, but they don't put the end of the statement on TV a lot, which is that it must be in pursuant to the Constitution. And I'm sure a lot of you have your Constitution. You might want to flip through it and look if there's anything in there that talks about groping women and children without probable cause. It's not there. Therefore, the entire TSA operation is a perfect example of something that's ripe for nullification, because as it stands right now, it is null, void, and of no force, and we in our various states have no reason to stand for it, as the Texans decided that they were going to not stand for it. So this letter goes around, and this John E. Murphy, United States Attorney, says, under the Supremacy Clause of the United States Constitution, Texas has no authority to regulate federal agents and employees in the performance of their federal duties or to pass a statute that conflicts with federal law.
No.
Okay, so how does that jive with what I just told you about the actual Supremacy Clause? Right. So then what you have is the Texas Senate basically caving in on the last day of the session. Those people have to wait a year and a half for another chance, unless Governor Perry, who's all concerned about his presidential bid, decides to call it a special session. But the bottom line is this is nothing short of a victory. We have to understand the reality of today, and that we're actually winning. We're gaining ground, and the federal government is losing ground. And this letter right here is evidence of that. Because they're running scared. They're trying bully tactics. This is something that I remember from 5th grade on the playground. You try that, I'm gonna hit you in the face. I'm gonna shut down all your airplanes. Well, there's more than just Texas who are standing up right now in defense of the Constitution, in defense of their rights, in defense of just a peaceful quality of life, just a basic leave me alone. I just want to do my own thing. Don't want to be reaching up my skirt. Other states that have introduced TSA bills, New Jersey has introduced a bill to ban body scanners. New Hampshire has banned touching or viewing. I assume that means viewing naked X-ray pictures. And then Pennsylvania and Hawaii. So it's not just Texas. And I'll tell you what, they're going to have a real problem on their hands if they're going to try to threaten 25 states to shut down all air travel, aren't they? So another issue that I'm sure a lot of you are interested in right now is the freedom to go to a doctor of your choosing and to take care of your human bodies in a way that you decide is right for you. Opponents of the healthcare nullification movement say, oh, we don't want sick people to get care. We just want, dead people in the streets. And it's not it at all. Not it at all. But the bottom line is, we've got to get out of this mentality that says that the only way to take care of people is via the federal government, via the centralized state. Because we can take care of people as communities. We can take care of people right here in Los Angeles without a dime of federal money, and we can do it better. So other states are discovering that there's this other way, what we educate about at the 10th Amendment Center. And some of the states that are considering this right now are Oregon, Wyoming, South Dakota, Texas, Oklahoma, New Hampshire, Nebraska, Minnesota, and Maine. So these are not obscure ideas just happening in certain corners of the Republic. This is not a Southern neo-Confederate thing. This is happening all over the place. North Carolina actually passed healthcare freedom. The governor vetoed it. Tennessee passed healthcare freedom, and the governor signed it. Kansas and Iowa both passed in the House, and 13 other states are considering it right now. Interstate commerce is another one of the pieces of legislation that we have ready for California or any other state. What interstate commerce says is that anything that's grown, produced, sold, manufactured, that stays within the state of California and does not leave, is therefore intrastate and not interstate commerce, and is completely off limits to federal regulation. We can decide what we want to do with the goods and services that we have here in California. That is happening in Tennessee, Florida, North Carolina, Virginia, and Virginia and Arizona actually have passed interstate commerce bills. In South Carolina, they're specifically, focusing in on the light bulb law and saying we would like to have our own process for deciding what light bulbs are used in the state. Wow. We're sending the stormtroopers on that one. We have food freedom acts pending in 5 states. One of these was Montana until it died in committee. You really have to watch out, folks, for these committees. This is where you have to focus your energies, because this is where many good bills die, is in some obscure committee that's controlled by special interests. Constitutional tender. Constitutional tender. We have a few states who are objecting to the fact that we've gone off of something called the gold standard. We've gone into very dangerous financial waters. Anybody who's studied things at the Mises Institute can tell you all about this and can probably do a pretty good job of it. But we've got Utah, which has actually passed and signed into law something stating that tender must be constitutional, must be based on actual solid money, gold and silver, etc. We've got Iowa, South Carolina, Montana, and Georgia, who are also considering. And then there's cannabis. Got any fans in the room here? This is the state of California. We've been touring all over the country talking about you guys. Talking about how the medical marijuana movement is really the ringleaders of this whole thing. And not because we want everybody smoking joints, but rather because the example of the medical marijuana movement in California is a perfect example of nullification. Was there ever a federal decision that said, okay, you guys in California can smoke your weed now? No, that didn't happen, and the feds actually continued to resist this and raid, honest business people who were operating perfectly according to the state government. But the movement resisted and decided that they weren't going to back down to these draconian tactics. And now we have an amazing number of people who are being helped out by this incredible plan. And we didn't do it because the feds told us we could. We just did it. And that's nullification right there. How am I doing on time? Okay, so then there's another batch of bills that are out there, just more basic 10th Amendment resolutions, and you hear some of the purists getting upset about these bills because they say they have no teeth. We're seeing some resolutions that are just basically condemning the federal behavior and not necessarily going all the way and saying we'll arrest federal agents like the Texans were ready to do. But we have to view these things in perspective and understand that this is a process, that the centralization of power in this country has been taking place for 80 to 100 years. 80 to 100 years. We have a whole lot of stuff to shovel, and it's going to take a while. 180 was the comment from the front row. So when you hear about this sort of thing, non-binding resolutions, you got to understand this is still a small step and still a small victory, because the bottom line on all of this is that average folks like you people, you understand that this makes sense. You understand that you want to have more control over your lives. You understand that it's a good thing for you to have localized control over your food supply, over your medical supply, over whether or not your sons and daughters go off to war, when they're supposed to be protecting their state. These are all things that average people get. And that's why this movement is growing by leaps and bounds. And that's why for 2 years now, I've been struggling just trying to keep up with how fast it's all moving. But this is a movement of the people. This is about taking power back and not waiting for the establishment to tell us that we get to. That's what nullification is. And that's why you're all here today. So open your minds. You're going to hear a lot of new information. You're going to hear a lot of things that don't necessarily jive with your TV pundits that you may have watched in the past, because this is a whole new ball game. So I hope that you soak it all in, and I hope that you talk to each other, and after today, move forward and actually do something with these ideas, because if it all just stays in this room, then it's not very effective, is it? Thank you very much.